The Rock and Roll Coffee Show is brought to you by Writers and Rockers Coffee Company, keeping the music and memories alive with some damn good coffee. Be sure to pick up your Rock and Roll Coffee Show coffee only at writersandrockerscoffee.com. And also brought to you by Retroactive, located at Broadway at the Beach in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, keeping you retro with everything from 70s, 80s, and 90s. ShopRetroactive.com. Have you ever stared at a computer screen for 23 hours? That's how long I've been sitting here waiting for you.
I can understand that, and I hope I make it worthwhile. This visual should be enough to inspire that kind of patience.
It's the Rock and Roll Coffee Show. Yeah, we go.
I am Joe Sibilia, and this is the Rock and Roll Coffee Show, bringing you the best in music and movie guests. Thank you so much for joining me. My guest is probably one of the most talented and creative people I know. You might know him as the founding member and guitarist and one-time singer of the band Saigon Kick. My guest is none other than Jason Bieler. Jason's about to release his second record under the Jason Bieler and the Baron Von Bielski Orchestra name. The title of that record is Postcards From The Asylum, and that'll be out April 14th. I've heard the record, and I highly recommend you check it out. I would not lie to you, it's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to talk to Jason all about the record and more next on the Rock and Roll Coffee Show. Stick around.
It's the Rock and Roll Coffee Show. Yeah, we go.
You've got a new album coming out. I believe it's your second solo record, correct?
Yes, sir.
Called Postcards From The Asylum.
Yep.
And that'll be out April 14th. And I've heard the record, and another masterpiece, my friend.
Oh man, thanks so much. I'm glad. You know, it's one of those things in this day and age. You kind of make these things in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
So, even in the old days, you'd be in a studio, there'd be people around, and you'd be getting more kinds of interaction of label folks, radio people coming in and out, and at least have some kind of. So you kind of make these things in this self-indulgent bubble. So hearing it from you that you like it is it's nice, because I wasn't sure whether I made the ultimate train wreck or a good record. You never know until it kind of takes flight.
Right. No, I think I was thinking about this the other day, because I've been following you since Saigon Kick days. I used to live out in Florida as well when you guys were just coming up. And this record, I think, is some of your best stuff. I think every time I hear something you put out, it's getting better and better.
By the time I'm like 110, I'm going to really be like a force to be reckoned with, I think.
You're going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way yourself? Or, do you feel that you're progressing as a songwriter?
Yeah. People always say I don't mean it in the sense that whether or not it'll ever achieve the heights of, the music business has changed and all that kind of stuff. But I do feel like I am getting better as a player, as a musician, at articulating what I want to do. And that's a cool place to be. You know what I mean? It's like, whether that, now hopefully that translates. This record seems to be getting a lot of really great feedback, and that's awesome. And, to be at this point in your career and have a, kind of almost a second rebirth is something that I am so appreciative of.
Right.
But yeah, I have friends that are like pro athletes and stuff, and, your time is kind of like, all right, you're 30, 35, it's coming to an end. But music's kind of one of those things where if you stay at it, you can really keep getting better. So yeah, I do feel like I'm getting, whether better or not is obviously subjective, but I feel like I'm getting clearer at doing what I want.
Sure. Now, another thing that you've always done, and it stands out on this record as well, is the diversity of, you can hear something like there's some songs on there that have the heavy grooves, like the Saigon Kick grooves, and then you've got the mellower stuff, and then you've got just some straight out, just crazy stuff, like Flying Monkeys, Yeah. That's you don't hear that much, and it all works together.
I think the key, at least for me, is that I truly want to pursue that. I love that type of music. I like a lot of types of music. So I think if you sit down as a musician from a place of like, oh, I want to be interesting, or I want to try to do diverse things for the sake of that, it always comes across as contrived and maybe doesn't. But I literally always grew up my playlist was Jane's Addiction, Barry Manilow, Neil Sedaka, Tom Waits, Bjork, Zeppelin, Ozzy, Maiden, Kiss. I mean, Miles Davis, Elvis Costello. And I've just, that's the way music has always been my whole life. So what tends to happen is like an idea will come and I'll just flow with that concept. And so I love the fact that it's diverse. It's funny, I've developed a kind of base of people that I think if I ever made a straight record, they'd kill me. I have the opposite problem, like a lot of musicians have, like, just make that kind of rock record we like. And also just my attention span. I don't know whether it's some kind of form of mental issues, but I couldn't make a record of 12 heavy tunes.
Well, maybe just a little bit of mental issues.
I have, well, you could speak to some friends of mine, they'll definitely say they're large size, but I would just get bored. I mean, I always like to be, I love to go out there and play a heavy riff and lie. It's great. And then, but I don't want to do that 12 times. I just, I want, I like movies that are twisting and turning and that Quentin Tarantino thing of like 1 second you think you're here and then the next second, but that's the way art seems to me to, so, yeah, I mean, diversity has always been a cornerstone, but not contrived to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. And then you chose also to go the double record out again.
Yeah. In a day and age when everyone's saying just do singles and EPs, I've decided to go back-to-back double albums, proving I'm just, I ride the trend.
Now, the double record in red is available on Bandcamp, I believe, right?
Correct. Yeah,
yes.
We did that specifically. I've been really fortunate over the years to develop a really good group of people that have supported the hell out of me on Bandcamp, and I wanted to do something specific just for that format. And then we're doing a yellow vinyl, which will be just for indie retail.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're doing a black vinyl will be, available kind of everywhere.
Do you get excited on record release day still, or is it different now?
I mean, the best time for me is probably when I like finish the recording initially, like when I finish a song and I'm like, and I listen back for the first time and it's like, that's the biggest high I get from it. Secondarily, like I love people I respect hearing that it's working. Like, oh, okay, like I said, that's what drives me nuts more than anything else is, there's a huge chunk of my brain that wants to immediately like hit stop on the recorder and upload it. So I can get that feedback of like, oh, did you like this? Did you not like it? So that's the biggest frustration with release day and dealing with physical distributors and, online components and people yelling about marketing initiatives. And we need this, and we need time, and we need, that's more frustrating than exciting.
Sure.
But I mean, but obviously the huge reward is finding out people like the music and having them hear it. And hopefully, that's obviously a massive part of it. But I just find the impatience of it troubling.
Yeah. Understandable. Now, are you doing everything yourself now? Or is this
in terms of
are you releasing it on your own and doing that kind of stuff?
I did a distribution deal in the United States with a company called Amped, and then have obviously digital distribution all over the place. And I ran a label for a long time.
Yep, I remember that.
And I've just figured the way I am, I've just come to the point in my life, and I don't mean this. I mean, I hear so many guys of that are just bitter about the music industry, and it doesn't come from that place at all. I love my time in the music business with other labels on Atlantic, on, dealing with Universal, running. I mean, it was all great. I just come to the point in my life where I realize I want to play with my toys how I want to play with them.
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? And it's like, not that I couldn't sit at a table with 10 people telling me if I wore a different hat, the record would do better on TikTok, or I just can't, I don't want to sit there anymore. It doesn't mean that they're not right. I just want to create my own little world for better or worse and do things exactly how I want to do them. So that's kind of where this stemmed from more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you would know better than me because you're in it, but, being a person with a name, your name is well known out there. You can go out there and put stuff out and people will find it. It's easier to do that kind of thing on your own these days. So is it necessary for someone to really have a label behind them to, if they already have kind of a name, to get it out there?
I mean, I definitely have benefited from having been on a major label in the past. And, those were huge times with a lot of money spent on marketing, but I don't think it really carried over. I spend more time explaining to people that I'm not Justin Bieber than them recognizing that I am Jason Bieler, or that the names carried me. As a matter of fact, I think it's been a blessing because with these last two records, a lot of people have found it for the first time and aren't really aware of the Saigon Kick thing. And they kind of retroactively, oh my God, I had no idea it was that guy. So it's kind of developed a new, like, especially in the prog world, like a lot of those fans have come to this new and are a completely different group of people than those that have followed me from the Saigon Kick days. And that's a super cool place to be. So, I mean, we live in a world where, like you were talking about, do you need it? I mean, there's a kid in South Korea tonight that's going to make a mix of something and put it up on the net, and next week he's going to be a millionaire because it just explodes all over the place. So that wasn't always possible. But in the rock band sense, I mean, it's hard. I mean, but like, it's always been hard. It's always had its issues, you know what I mean? So I don't know, better or worse. I enjoy it just from the sense of the fact that I can go directly I can be exactly who I want to be. I can present myself the way I want to present myself, for better or worse. I can do what I want. I can make, I collaborate with this brilliant artist and we can do exactly how we want to do it. And again, that doesn't mean it's right. It just means it's what we want to do. And that is something that's really important to me now. So, I mean, I'm enjoying the hell out of that process.
And you had a lot of guest players on this record as well, just like your last one, right?
Yeah, for sure. I was, you mentioned Flying Monkeys. I mean, that's Marco Miniman on drums. And I don't know of a more freakishly talented drummer on earth. I mean, the guy's just absolutely out of his mind. I mean, and it was just such an honor that he would, first of all, say yes. And I think he just killed the track and was amazing. And I played with Edu Cominato again, who also played on the last record. Great drummer from Brazil. Andy Blacksugar, who's like my right-hand man, and really collaborated on a huge chunk of the record. And he's just brilliant. He's in KMFDM. He plays with Blondie. He played with Peter Murphy back in the day. And he's just this great blend of, like, it's like Brian Eno meets Yngwie. He can shred old school and he understands that world. At the same time, he's a very modern player and really has one foot in both places. And he's added such a great depth to the record. My buddy Todd Kearns, who plays with Slash and the Conspirators and Took, and just a great bass player. He played on the track. Ryo Okamoto, who's a keyboard player, brilliant keyboard player from the prog world. He plays in a band called Spock's Beard for a long time. And he plays on a track. Ricky Sanders, who played on the last record, also plays on this record. And Chris McClernand, who was in Saigon Kick, plays on one song as well. So, yeah, not quite as many people as the last record, but it really worked out. It's super fun. I mean, when I look back at who's played on these records, it's just like, I don't know if you get much luckier.
Yeah, well, I haven't played on it yet, so.
Well, I mean, that's what the third record is. I mean, it's really reserved just for you.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Okay. What song did Chris play on?
Birds of Prey.
Okay. How do you choose who's going to play on what song?
To this point, I'd love to say there's this huge, deep, analytical pie chart graph of people's talents versus the music. Some things lend themselves really obviously, like, Marco made such sense for Flying Monkeys just because he's done that. He's been a part of that Zappa world. He's a guy who can literally read the black page and play it kind of cat. So my request, and I wouldn't say instructions, but my guidance to him was, please go berserk. I've never really normally say that to somebody, but the beauty of this track is that I think his overplaying makes me so happy. Yeah. It's so cool and fun, and it really serves the track. But generally speaking, I mean, I just finish a track and an idea will pop in my head, and I'll fire it off to that person. And I mean, the thing is, I mean, this, you're a musician. So I mean, the thing that's been really reaffirming is that these people are brilliant. Not that they need me to tell them that, but Bumblefoot is going to give you something really cool. Yeah. You know what I mean? All these guys, Benji from Skindred, Devin Townsend. I mean, they're amazingly talented people. Butch Walker, all in their own right. So when you're dealing with people of that caliber, my initial fears were kind of like, oh, I hope this is a good part, because if it's not, it's going to be very awkward to say, thanks so much for wanting to play on the record, but this didn't work. We're completely changed to, it is so amazing to hear Clay Cook from the Zac Brown Band, his interpretation of these songs. And I think, the danger of doing stuff, a lot of the songwriting and everything by yourself, is that you can get very one-dimensional and very, it starts to sound of a certain, so each one of these guys to me adds this kind of like prism of new depth and width to the records in a really cool way. So it's been one of the great, musical honors of my life to just, be able to work with them and work on some tunes with them.
Yeah. Talk about the creative process with your songs. Like, how do you approach the songwriting? Does it come with just a guitar riff that you're messing around with? Do you come up with the lyrics and melody first? I mean, is there a flow to it, or how do you do it?
There isn't. It's kind of unusual, and this is not meant in any kind of spiritual sense, because that's the last thing I am. It tends to come to me like voices in my head. Like I hear complete pieces of music, melody, lyric, and just general context all at once. And I don't really want to question it because I fear it'll go away. So I just kind of like, it all just kind of comes out, generally speaking, fairly, recognizably where the songs ultimately wind up. And that makes me a terrible collaborator because it's all coming to me. So if someone's in the room is like, what we need is a harmonica, I'm like, I instantly go for like, and not because again that they're not talented people and they're not great, but I find myself from a writing perspective best left to my own devices. I can kind of build this little world and then kind of collaborate with people. For me, works better. But yeah, a lot of it, I mean, even the lyrical content, like it's so funny because, we finished this record and I didn't really take stock in it the way, you would think I would. So I assembled all the lyrics because my art guy, Robert, was putting everything together, and I had my wife proofread just to make sure I didn't look like any more of an idiot than I already am. And especially making double vinyl, that's kind of a real permanence to your idiocy if you don't proofread. And after they started going through the lyrics, like, you have some serious problems. Like, I don't know if you've do you realize what these lyrics are? And, and then Robert brought up the fact that it's really this really kind of like, I wouldn't call it a concept record in the classic sense, but there's a real thread of issues and things going on through the whole record. And I don't even realize I'm really doing it. I mean, it just kind of comes out that way.
Has it always been that way for you, even in the early days?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, even a pop tune, not exactly what you call an adventurous composition like Love Is On The Way. I wrote that in like 5 minutes, all in one piece. I have a demo of it on Bandcamp of me just on a 12 string.
I heard that.
And that's as it came out. Like
really?
That, it just kind of came out like that. Even most of the lyrics, not that those lyrics were exactly the most groundbreaking lyrics of all time, but yeah, I tend to hear like, I don't know what it is, but it all kind of comes at the same time.
It's amazing. You definitely have a gift there.
Or a curse, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I guess. So does it just happen anytime? Like you could be out and you get a song idea and you're like, shit, I have nowhere to record this. Has that ever happened to you?
I mean, I'm really fortunate that I spent most of my life in or near a studio. So by the time I'm out, if I'm out of the house and I'm at a sushi, I'm focusing on like, a couple of beers and some sushi. Like the last thing I even think about is like, oh, there's a tune idea. But I'm usually, I try to keep those muscles working. So, I mean, I have a pretty strict, usually, I mean, right now I'm in a little bit of a hiatus from it because I want to clear my head. But I mean, usually, I'll get up, get a coffee, and I'm very lucky that I can walk to the studio and start working. I just start writing, start putting ideas, and build things. So, I mean, I think it's something, like anything else, I think that part of it for me is kind of a muscle. Like I want to, I want to keep that sharp and then always be in the process of writing even bad songs.
Sure.
I think Ed Sheeran said a really cool thing. He's like, when you first turn the hose on, you have to get the bad water out of the hose first before you start drinking, so, the bad songs serve a purpose,
Okay. And your guitar sound, you've always had that huge, just a great guitar sound. What are you using these days in the studio? Are you going direct? Are you micing up? What's happening?
I have a Victory Super Kraken head that I used a lot on this record. I have a 212 cabinet that I have mic'd up with some vintage 30s in it. But truth be told, a lot of times I'd use the head into an aux box, if you're familiar with that. The UA Audio aux box, and I'll take that digital into the board, and then Sometimes I'm using some of those. I mean, I've done a bunch of stuff with the Neural DSP guys. So some tracks are the quad cortex. Some of them are the plugins that they have that I think sound unbelievable. I mean, we're in kind of the golden age of, it used to be like 10 years ago, a modeler sounded like shit. I mean, there was no compare. Now, I mean, you can do anything, and it's kind of really cool because the way I work too, the plugins kind of facilitate a speed, because I like to work on a song and then jump to the mix of the other song and then back to a vocal. And having had a Neve console and all this kind of cool stuff, nothing ever comes back. You know, the way you had, I mean, it never is exactly what it was, whether the humidity changes or the board gets warmer or colder. So in the digital world, the fact that you can instantly go anywhere is also serves, you know, for me, helps me and my process, because then I'm not bound by setup or tear down or repatching, or, you know, everything just comes back the way it was. So I find myself working a lot more in the box than ever before.
Okay. And did you do everything on this record yourself? You did all the mixing and everything?
Yep.
Wow. It sounds great.
The mastering was done by a guy named Scott Craggs.
Okay.
But yeah, all the mixing we did here, you know.
And all the tracks were done remotely, I'm guessing, from everyone.
All my tracks, all the basic stuff, all the keys, everything that I did was done in my studio.
Sure.
All the special guests, you know, Marco did his stuff in his studio, Adu in Brazil, and everybody kind of did their remote parts, yeah.
Do you like recording like that, or do you like being in a room together?
You know, I romantically thought I liked being in a room with people. The truth is, I'm an asshole. And as a musician, you're going to get this too. What I didn't realize is, working with other musicians, is as you're working on something in a room and I have an idea the way it should go, and then you're trying to come up with something and you sense my body language slightly shift, or like you see that, like the slight, and now you're not doing your best work because and the whole thing goes to shit just because of that dynamic. So what this is allowing me to do is, you know, obviously when you work with great musicians, it's the first part of it, but they can totally realize their vision in their own time, in their own place, and present exactly what they want without that kind of interference of like that, you know, that other musician going, yeah, but if you did this for it, and you're like, I'm just working it up. Give me 5 minutes, will you, before and I find it actually, I think it's getting the best out of people, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've been recording some stuff the same way with other guys. And I think it's pretty exciting when they say, hey, here's the tracks. When you first dump them in and get to listen to them, that's pretty exciting. Because you haven't really heard it yet.
Yeah, I mean, you get presented a full vision of what they feel and see and how they think it should go. And like I said, the whole battle then becomes, did I pick a good guitar player? Did I ask a good bass player? Did I ask a good drummer to play? Because once you've done that, the whole thing's cake.
Yeah. You ever get tracks back that you just weren't happy with?
I mean, not yet.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been really, you know, really blown away because they've come up with, I mean, obviously we talked about the musicians again, but I'm getting things back that I wouldn't have done, which is also really important. Like they're not approaching the music like, what would Jason do? They're approaching it like, Andy's going to play Andy style stuff. I don't think people realize how much of a contribution Andy's made to even a lot of the guitar parts that they're hearing.
He has a video up I saw on YouTube where he's breaking down one of the songs.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
I mean, he's done so many solos and so many cool pieces and so many things that people would be, you know, he does not get enough credit for how good of a guitar player he is. And again, with Adu and everybody like that, they've really brought like some really cool stuff that I wouldn't have thought of, or, you know, ways of they interpret the music in a really cool way. And it's been a really cool thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, I've heard it. It's fantastic. I've been listening to it. Been kind of annoyed listening to it just because I have to listen to it through Dropbox and it doesn't go to the next song. So like if I'm in the middle of something, I'm like, damn it, it needs to go to the next song. Then I have to stop what I'm doing. And so
that's Roy's problem. He told me that's why all the kids are giving records out now.
Damn, Roy. That's 2 for him. But yeah, so I ordered the red vinyl. So
awesome.
So I'm excited for.
I could have hooked you up with that. You know, I know a guy.
You do?
But I appreciate the support.
Damn it. Well, I thought I'd help you out. Although it's not going to be here till November, I'm told. So
No, I have good news. Don't tell anybody, but it looks like July.
Well, I'll let you know when it gets here because
I
my
will let you
email
know.
says November.
No, I know, but we just got updated. Like, I wanted to make sure that because the last thing I want to do is tell everybody July
Yeah.
and then find out that there's been some hiccups in it, so I figured like way overshoot so everyone's relaxed and
There you
then
go.
hopefully make them happy. But it looks like it should be showing up in July.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to see it and get my hands on it. I still like that physical thing, It's great here in
That was
digital, but I
important.
like to have some.
I mean, I totally respect how people digest music. So I don't begrudge anybody wanting to listen to one or two songs or listen on Spotify or however however you listen to music is a personal thing, and that's great. But it was important to me to make a record that if you so choose to sit down with a double vinyl on headphones, reading the liner notes, that there'd be an experience there, so I hope the record will really function in those two worlds well, because there's a lot of ear candy, headphone delays, and strange stuff going on that I hope people can keep revisiting the record and finding more and more stuff in it, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for it. So I'll let you know when it gets here. Then you
Cool,
know
man.
how to ship.
Thanks.
The Baron Von Bielski. Now you've had that around for a while, right?
Mhm.
That name.
Mhm.
What made you decide to want to use it for these projects?
Well, I mean, I wanted the freedom of, I didn't want it to sound like it was just me as a singer-songwriter. And I think when it just started dawning on me, like the Baron Von Bielski Orchestra is such an insane sounding vaudeville-esque thing that it really gives the project freedom to be anything at any time. And anybody could be a part of it at any time. So it wasn't going to be this like stagnant, like, oh, it's the Jason Bieler band, and that's the band that's in it. Like you look at like the great Tom Petty lineups, or not that I'm equating myself with that, but I'm saying like that was a band that you looked at as like a band. This was something that I wanted to have the freedom of bringing in all these musicians I love. And when we get around to doing the touring, well, obviously we'll have lineup things, but I didn't want it to be stagnant or seen as a one-dimensional. This is like these 4 guys or 5 guys. And I just felt like it's all seemed to make sense. And then as I started developing the art with Robert, everything just started to seem to work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you had mentioned touring. I mean, do you have a touring band together, or like some of the main guys, or no?
I'm putting it together as we speak, looking at options. I mean, the biggest thing for me is that, and I don't mean this in an ego sense of like, oh, it's a huge thing and we have to do it, it's got to be a stadium tour. I don't care if it's in front of 200 people, 300 people, but it was really important for me I think these records are very big and cinematic, and I want them to come across, and I want to do the shows that way. So I didn't want to just throw them out there and be playing at, Jimmy's barbecue pub in Pitt for a 30-minute set, because I just think it would sell the music short of what this is. So that's what we're focused on, is just making sure we seize the day at the right time with the right shows. And we're looking at the end of the year, beginning of next year, to start to realize that.
Now, listening to the songs and picturing a tour, I see a lot of visuals, a lot of stuff. It seems like it'd be a big task to take this on tour.
Absolutely. Ideally, I won't even have to show up. We could just do it all visuals.
True.
Or we can just put somebody in a plague mask in the back, and
They'll never know.
They'll never know the difference. Yeah, but that's the whole point. I want to try to, as much as possible, make it a special, big, as not Pink Floyd big, but I want the record and the visuals to come across as a kind of a thematic piece, and kind of bring it to life that way. It's kind of, for me, it's important.
Yeah, you got to do it right. You only get one crack at it, right? The first time.
Well, especially at this age, who knows how many more cracks you're going to get at it, right?
Right. I'm with you on that. So you've been also keeping busy with Jeff Scott Soto. You guys have been doing a lot of things. I think you have some shows coming up in May as well, a couple.
Yeah, we're doing the Monsters of Rock cruise together at the end of April. With Extreme and Tesla and Winger and Queensryche. And then yeah, it'd be great. And that's always a good time. And then we're doing a bunch of shows at the end of May. We're gonna be doing Philly, New York City, Boston, and Connecticut. And I'm trying to think. There's so many things happening at the same time that I'm terrible with. And then we're doing a bunch more stuff in October. It's strange enough. We just started this as like, let's go have some fun, just guitar and vocals, and we'll do some bizarre, anything we want to do. And again, saying vaudeville again, but it's become this kind of shticky vaudeville, insane, nonsensical chaos evening. And it's grown and it starts selling out at all these different, city wineries. And we just played Nashville and it's becoming this whole life of its own. And it's super fun because it literally is like going somewhere with your buddy and saying like, let's have a few drinks, stay at a nice hotel and just go nuts. And I find more often than not, whenever I don't try to put a business plan together, things work out better for me.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Have you, is this the first time you've worked with Jeff as far as doing something like this? I know when you were younger, he contacted you and you guys did some stuff, but is this
I was in a band called Talisman with him. Yeah. I mean, we've always been friends. We've always talked, but I think, I might've played on one of his solo, but again, a remote, like I might've played a track on one of his solo records, but this is the first time we've ever just gone out. And
Wow,
it's kind of funny because people said, why don't you guys record together? And we're like, no, it'll ruin everything.
Yeah.
We don't want to record this. This is about being in the moment, sharing an experience with people that's never going to happen again because we don't even know what we just did. And I don't want to make it that thing where now we're doing a record and it's really about this live thing, and it's been super rewarding and super fun.
Yeah, it's so fun. I'm hoping to catch a show if you come near. I'm in Myrtle Beach. I don't know if you remember that, but I think you came to South Carolina at one point.
We did a couple things in Hilton Head, yeah.
Yeah, which was a little far. I couldn't get to it at the time. So if you get back to the Myrtle Beach area, Charleston or something, I'll be there.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to seeing something like that. Now you also recently, Saigon Kick released Water on vinyl.
Yeah. Well, they Rhino, I guess, licensed it, and they
I got it right here. So yeah, that one came already.
So you have it. I don't have it.
I have it. Well, you got it. I know somebody.
See, you have connections.
Now, when something like that happens, do you have any say in that? Because I know they can buy the license and release it. Do you?
Yeah, they licensed that directly from Atlantic. Chris was dealing with the people at, I guess, Real Gone who did the records. They did the first 2 records as well.
Right.
So it wasn't really a creative thing that I got involved with at all, or I mean, I think Rock Candy is a label out of the UK that also licenses the CD, so they did a reissue of the first 3 CDs, and to my understanding, they're it's kind of neat. The Water record specifically is neat because it was never on vinyl, so people that are into collecting that's a really cool thing. And this is not about anything that Real Gun's doing. Generally, I avoid the reissue, remaster. I don't want to be in that business. I feel like a lot of times it's a money grab.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably.
Unless you really substantially do something to those records. And the funny thing is, and I was talking about this with somebody else, is like records that you loved 30 years ago have a sound and a way they were ingested by you that imprint on your DNA. So making them sound better is worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a record should sound the way it sounded when you were 15. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what made it magical. So yeah, I generally don't. It's not something creatively I'm super into. I mean, next year I'll reissue everything on my own catalog. The remasters of both Baron Von Bielski records on. But generally speaking, I don't like doing it.
I'm surprised it was never on vinyl. That must have been like at the end of when they stopped printing vinyl, huh?
Yeah, I don't even know if the Lizard was on vinyl. The first record was. Right. Yeah, but I think the Lizard was 93.
Yeah.
So that would have been like the end of the long box CD era.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't think there was vinyl then. I mean, there was a vinyl, but not on our records. And then the Water record definitely wasn't on vinyl.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you find when something like that happens, though, somebody does re-release something, you find renewed interest in the band?
It's been really great. I mean, people have been discovering the records, and you have these camps that, the first record's the best record, the second record, the third record's the best. And that's all cool stuff, man. I mean, that's awesome that people still, those records mean, while the band wasn't huge in the Metallica sense, the people who love those records are like unbelievably passionate fans of that stuff. And, it's super nice to hear that those songs mean something to people, and they still listen to those records and they like it, and seeing everybody so excited about getting that record on vinyl and posting on Instagram. It's like, there are worse things that can happen to a person.
Yeah, right, right. And it's very cool on your Bandcamp that you have some demos of the earlier Saigon Kick stuff. Now, were those all the real demos that you presented to the band?
Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
You still had them all that time?
Those are the original mock-ups of most of those tunes. Yeah.
And some of them were done acoustically. Do you start the songs on acoustic a lot of times?
It depends on what I'm like. What's closest? I'm very lazy.
Yeah, just grab some, whatever's right there.
Yeah, and then the older you get, the less you're like, oh, I don't want to lean. So this one will have to.
That's why these are right here.
Exactly. Can't.
See, you got to walk to go get yours.
I know it's terrible. Well, cardio is very important.
Do what?
Cardio is very
Oh
important.
yeah. I need that. That's awesome, man. All right, so it's coming out April 14th. People will be able to hear the whole thing, right?
Absolutely.
On digital, and they can pre-order the record, the vinyl now.
Yep, the CDs will be out the 14th, April 14th. It'll be on all the digital services. The vinyl, I have been cracking the whip and should be as fast as humanly possible. And yeah, I mean, I'm super stoked that everyone's so far. The feedback's been amazing, and that's always nice to hear. Compared to the opposite feedback would be terrible.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I think it's some of the best stuff I've heard from you, and I can't wait to get the vinyl in my hands in July, not November.
Well, exactly. I sped it up by 3 months. This has been a really productive call.
All right. Well, listen, Jason, I appreciate you joining me, man, and best of luck to you.
Thanks so much again for having me. It's always a great time talking to you, and I apologize for the 1-day delay.
Well, like I said, I've been here 23 hours, so.
But I hope the anticipation, like they say, made it even more exciting.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you so much, buddy. Talk to you soon.